Meet me. Welcome back, boys. So Conquer Lilias just came out, and she's making waves. And you guys know me. I'm not really a negative person. I'm a Smilegate apologist. I typically defend them. And I love Epic 7, but this video is going to sound a little negative, but it's not meant to be. It's just me trying to be real. So we all knew that Conquer Lilias was going to be good. And I was actually excited about her kit, but I was wrong. I think this hero is very bad for the game. And this is coming from the perspective of an ex-Legend RTA player, and I'm still Legend now. I'm kind of washed up now because I skipped pretty much all of last season because I was burnt out. But I'm still reasonably okay at this game. And as far as I can tell, this hero is an absolute disaster. Now, after having some time to use her and fight against her, I had to go back to my first impressions video to remind myself what I actually thought of her, and what I said was, unsurprisingly, I thought she was going to be very strong. So 1 point for me, I was right there. What was I wrong about? I said that I really loved her kit because she didn't have any stupid RNG or rock, paper, scissors mechanics. 'Cause that's a general trend now, right? Like all these new heroes that do dumb things, like Belian, where it's like it just, if you have Blind, it can't get. So it's like dumb mechanics like that. Like I hate that. And the thing I liked about her kit was that there was really nothing quote unquote new about her kit, right? Like redirected provoke already exists, barriers already exist, dual attacks exist. But I kind of missed that Vigor was new because, Vigor already existed in the game, but, there was no way to give it to your team. We'll get into that later. But the point is, I said I loved her kit for those reasons, and I was very wrong. I was dead wrong. I don't love her kit at all because, yes, they did rework existing mechanics into a single hero, which is what I wanted. Kind of, I think Amelia was a perfect example of this. I think this is a case where they did it well. Nothing new. They just, made a new combination hero that turned out to be very good because the CR boosting Soul Weaver that could cleanse was very strong. But with this, it's a little too much. So we're going to go into like 5 topics here. But basically, the conclusion is this combination is just too goddamn strong. So, topic number 1, let's just get started. 1, she's too goddamn fast for such a good utility hero. So, she has 121 base speed. Now, I'm not even putting my fastest gear on her because I wanted her to have some tankiness, and my tanky speed gear is not good. I could actually probably make her faster than this. Like, I don't know. I could play around with it. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, even now she's already at like 307 speed. Like, she's too goddamn fast for what she can do. Typically, very fast heroes, something like a Ran or a Cerise, they have some kind of bad trade-off, right? Because they typically need very high effectiveness to do their jobs. So they're super squishy. So yes, they can get turn 1 and initiate, but like most cleave teams, if they don't get enough done in the opener, they kind of just die. There's a risk-reward ratio there. And if you pick one of those heroes, good players know what you're trying to do if you first pick it, and they punish you, so you kind of have to hide those picks later in the draft a lot of the time. Good cleavers, a lot of times, will hide the fact that they're cleaving until their 3-pick. Like, they'll pick something like APOC Ravi first, which is pretty neutral and you can't tell, and then they'll transition to a Ran cleave. No one good picks Ran first. The problem with ML Lilias is she's decently tanky and can still be 300 speed. This lets her be both a speed contester, yet still be extremely good in a bruiser draft. So we're going to get more into this later, but basically there's no penalty to first picking her ever, which is bad design to me. Yes, you can pick Conquer Lilias into cleave because she's a very viable cleave contester. Her kit actually works very well against cleave. You can shut down something that's very important with redirected provoke. You tank them up with barrier. You tank them up with vigor buff. You decrease attack and strip the cleave team. All of these things are devastating to a cleave team. So Conquer Lilias actually technically has an anti-cleave kit, and on top of that, she's fast enough to contest cleaves. but she even is very strong in bruiser drafts. So let's get into topic number 2. Team wide undispellable vigor is retarded, or that's not PC anymore, right? I'm old. It's idiotic. It's too strong. Now, this should have been common sense because typically most buffs in the game. So Vigor is a buff that was given to Ken and ML Kawazu, right? So yeah, typically any buff in the game that's undispellable, like Mind's Eye or whatever Millim's Dragon, whatever it's called, they're undispellable because the heroes rely on them and because those buffs are really strong. Yes, attack and defense buff are 50%, so if you get them both up, technically they're better than Vigor buff. But the thing is, they're dispellable, and on top of that, there's not many heroes that can, or even teams that can get both of those up team wide. Like you need something weird, like well, team wide attack buffs would be common, but then what? Like a Doris or Alencia, like heroes that are barely used anymore. So other than Crowd, there's not many things that do team wide defense buffs right now. But the thing is with ML Lilias, you get a super fast unit that could give your team both of those things. And it's hard to contest her speed because they're all 300. Like most legend ML Liliases are 300 speed or very close to it. And on top of that, both of these things are undispellable. Like you can't dispel the attack and defense. It's 30% of the 50, but it's huge. It's huge. And let's get into this next topic here. Number 3, unintended consequence. She synergizes way too well with heroes that also self-attack buff. But really, it doesn't even really need a self-attack buff. We'll get into that later. I actually first realized this on my very first match experimenting with ML Lilias. I remember it. I ran ML Cowrick, Landy, ML Lilias, and APOC. And I forget what I was up against, the exact team makeup, but there was an FCC and an S10A. ML Lilias put up Vigor, ML Cowrick attack buffed, and in my Bruiser land, this is my Landy build. It's not a full DPS build. I mean, it's DPS oriented, but you can see it has some HP stats. Like I was chasing some HP subs on a lot of my gear. And she one-shotted the S10A through FCC in Legend. So, you know, some people run squishier, higher damage S10As that are around 9k HP, but for anyone who does competitive RTA, you know that's not normal. Landy's first S3 generally does not hit too hard because you didn't have time to ramp up her passive yet. When you verse a Landy, it's a time limit, right? You survive the first 2 S3s, and then you really hit the pain train. You got to deal with Landy, otherwise you lose. But typically, you don't one-shot their team with the opener Landy unless you're running a full DPS Landy with like Flan or something. Clearly, this is not that kind of Landy. But I remember the S10A just dropping dead, and I was like, what the hell was that? When you put both Vigor and attack buff up, it's unhealable, unsurvivable damage. And the thing is, this is an indirect buff to any self-attack buffing unit in the game. You have to realize this. I don't have Ryla, but things like Ryla, like I do have stuff like Tomoka, like anything that has a self-attack buff and does a lot of single target damage, all of them got buffed with ML Lilias because the damage becomes unsurvivable when you have both these buffs up. Like a good example is something that you guys might have run into to kind of conceptualize this is, have you guys ever run into a well-built Violet's Talisman Rylet in Guild Wars where you bring a team to tank through her, like maybe like Ruel DC Crow into a Rylet team because you don't have any Rylet counters? Do you remember how hard those Rylets hit after they got 3 stacks of Violets up? Yeah, basically Rylet is going to do that to you in the opener now. You put up Vigor buff, and because Rylet has a self-attack buff, it stacks with Vigor. If you don't have an Aureus, 100% whatever he hits is dead. 100%. The only way to survive that is with an FCC barrier or with C-Armament. Anything other than those 2 sources of mitigation, you're dead. So, these opener, even like Bruiser openers with both Vigor and attack buff have essentially become unsurvivable. So yeah, if you're a fan of things like Tomoka, Millim, Rylet, or whatever, Get that ML Lilias up because you're just going to one-shot their teams. Number 4, did you know that she can essentially perma-disable people? This is something I missed in my first impressions of you. I didn't pay attention to the soul burn. It's a 10 soul burn that inflicts redirected provoke for 2 turns. And I kind of missed the implications of this because I wasn't thinking about how fast it is. Because Lilias kind of, this is not that dissimilar from Lilias, right? Because let's look at regular Lilias here. She has a 2-turn provoke, except a soul burn ignores effect resistance, but essentially it's a 2-turn provoke. And because I was thinking of Lilias, I was like, well, no one really cares that much about Lilias's provoke. It's pretty much the same thing. The difference here is the typical Lilias is around like 210 to 240 speed. The typical ML Lilias is around 300. And almost all of them, as I predicted, are running something like Border Coin or the Zahak artifact. Some people like Warhorn, but the problem with Warhorn is that you don't have many copies of it, and a lot of meta heroes like Mediator Cowrick really need it. So most of the time we're running Border Coin. And she gets 2 stacks right on her opener. So the thing is, you have a 2-turn provoke on a hero that's running effectively 350 plus speed after Border Coin stacks. So she cycles, and that soul burn, it is cheap. It is cheap, and the cooldown is lower than you think because she also has an extra turn mechanic. So yes, I ran into this where I forget what happened, but I lost. But my Violet, I could not get a single turn with. He was provoked the entire game, and he was just weaken attack bashing into like an FCC or something. Couldn't even break the barrier. It was infuriating. But yeah, she's so fast that this 2-turn provoke, kind of like a flurry, where if she gets enough of the self-CR pushes, she just rotates around infinitely and kind of locks you down. This is like another version of that, but worse, because I mean, the thing with Flurry is her S3 is super strong, but then she doesn't really do that much outside of the turns. All of Conqueror Lilias's turns have value. So, yeah, those are the main reasons that I think she's idiotic, but let's go to number 5, which is the conclusion. So, will people learn to deal with this? I mean, yeah. I mean, no matter what they come out with that's broken, top players are going to adapt to it. But the funny thing is, you know what the current adaptation appears to be from what I've seen? If you have first pick, you take ML Lilias. If you don't have first pick, you better ban it. That's the adaptation so far. That's stupid. The only reason people are letting ML Lilias through right now is to get practice against it. That's just the truth. Because when a new unit comes out, like you're okay with losing to it, right? Like people are still picking like Judge Kisei and Amerk right now, even into situations that it doesn't make sense to pick them. You could tell they're just testing it out. They just want to see. And that's why ML Liliases are still getting through. But I gotta say, every time I get her through, I seem to win, and every time I let the other guy through, I seem to lose. Not always, but like anything more than like 60% in Legend, and it starts being kind of weird. Like even the best heroes shouldn't have a more than 60% win rate, and if it does, it's a sign that it's getting a little imbalanced. But the thing is, this unit doesn't really have many counters. When I pick her, some people try to counter it with Politis, but it doesn't really counter this unless it's like an Abyssal Crown Politis and it stuns your whole team. Because with the extra turn you get, you just provoke the Politis right after, and it's not a big deal. But let's sum up her kit, and it should be fairly obvious why she's broken. ML Lilias is a super fast speed contester, easy to build 300 plus speed, who can lock down units permanently, weaken the entire enemy team, viable anti-cleave option, give your entire team a pseudo attack and defense buff that actually also stacks with other offensive attack and defense buffs that can screw with enemy speed tuning through CR manipulation with her S2, and still actually has decent DPS potential with her guaranteed dual attack mechanic. In other words, what the fuck? She soft counters things like AoL. Her cheap Soulburn lets her deal with things like Mediator, Cowrick, especially if you got any mages through. You just Soulburn it right away. She's so fast that she's an issue to cleave. Her vigor makes her a problem even in bruiser drafts. She's just a hero that's essentially strong in every single draft and was generally just a really stupid idea to add to the game. Now, there's been some ongoing controversy over Smilegate's well-known no nerf policy with, some people on both sides of the fence. I've generally been on the I'm fine with nerfs fence. With a hero like this, honestly, it's hard for anyone with actual knowledge of the game who isn't like a someone stuck in champion to argue anything other than this hero needs a nerf. Honestly, you don't even really have to change her kit that much to make it far more balanced. You can just take 9 base speed away from her. To mid-level players, this doesn't sound like a big deal to do that. It's like, oh, how is 9 speed going to change it? It's going to change it a lot. Because one of her biggest problems to me is she's a viable she's too fast for how good she is. If you want to make a hero this good, you have to at least give people the option to outspeed it. Like, if an AoL could consistently outspeed this, there's counters to it, right? You silence her, and then she kind of can't do anything in the opener. But the thing is, right now, you can't speed contest this. You can't speed contest this with an AoL. You can't speed contest it with a Mediator character or anything like that. She's too fast for a typical Bruiser draft, but she's still very good in Bruiser versus Bruiser. Right now, any semi-competent Legend tier player, even an Emperor tier player, can easily get her to 280 plus speed. Legend, easily 300 plus. I'm willing to bet that the average Legend ML Lilias is 300 or very close to it, depending on how tanky they want to make it. As you saw, I can make mine 307, but then her stats go all over the place. But I could make her that fast. Other possible nerfs, you could change her soul burn to be 20 souls. You can, or have it be 1 turn, but make it, ignore effect resistance. But I don't think that will be enough to change her kit all that much. Or maybe just make the soul burn like guaranteed dual attack from an ally at the greatest attack. I don't know. I really think the base speed nerf would be the best thing to do for her. And maybe change vigor where when it's granted from this, it can actually be dispelled, because honestly, it's just crazy strong. But I think in her current state with her overloaded kit and the fact that she's basically as fast as Cerise, it's absurd. The Squirrel disapproves. Am I going to abuse the hell out of her and draft her all the time? Of course I am. Of course I am. The same way I do with APOC Ravi. I think she's very similar to APOC Ravi. Not in their kits. Their kits are nothing alike. But it's the same reason I spam pick a Ravi, but I don't actually like a Ravi. Like, people are always like, oh, your RT videos, you just spam a Ravi. Is she your favorite hero? No, I don't actually like her that much at all, to be honest. The reason I spam first pick a Ravi, and I will now spam pick Conqueror Lilias, is because both of them are good against everything. There is no real risk to first picking these two heroes in my... A-Ravi's good against Cleave. A-Ravi's amazing in Bruiser vs. Bruiser. This is a kind of the same thing. It's actually worse. I think this hero's worse than APOC Ravi in first pick. Better, but worse in the sense that she's more toxic. Because if you first pick a Ravi, something I'd actually do that's kind of weird and people probably think it's weird is I pre-ban LQC and first pick a Ravi. The thing is, a Ravi, if you first pick her, some players can punish her. Like if they have well-built LQCs, or they like Caesarea cleaving, or Death Break cleaving with BBK, there are ways to deal with APOC Ravi. But this, I don't really know. I think she has even less counters. I can't really even think of what a good counter to her is. I think the best way to deal with her is just to go standard Bruiser versus Bruiser and just kind of survive and be able to cleanse and stuff. So yeah, can you beat her? Yeah, if you win the rest of the draft, if you draft a team that's very strong and they have Conqueror Lilias, but the rest of the draft is weak, yeah, you're going to beat them anyway. I'm not saying that she could single-handedly win every single game for you. She can't. She can't. If you lose the rest of the draft, you'll still lose. But I'm saying she's toxic in the sense that there's almost no reason not to first pick her. There's no real risk to first picking her. you don't first pick her and go like, oh my god, what if they do this? There is no what if they do that. She's going to be useful no matter what if you built her fast enough to be a reasonable speed contest. And to me, that takes away from the fun of drafting and what should be like a competitive mind game exercise into an increasingly dumb series of chain drafting a bunch of dumb, broken heroes over and over. Because some of you guys might be new to RTA, but like, I honestly thought in the older seasons, I mean, season one was kind of a nightmare. Like, there was brain power, but every match was so boring I wanted to kill myself. But like season two, season three, even season four, like, there was thought to it because there was a lot of heroes you could use. Not all of them had all these crazy RNG or rock paper scissors mechanics, and you could kind of come up with a team makeup that made sense. But hey, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Maybe it'll change. It has only been like 3 days since this hero came out, so maybe I'm wrong, and we could come back to this video in a few weeks and say, hey, she actually sucks. But I'm willing to bet money that won't be the case. I'm willing to bet this is going to be a super meta hero for the rest of the season in her current state if they don't nerf her. I'm willing to bet any amount of money on that. And yeah, I think this is a sign of the heroes that Smilegate continues to release, and I think it's a problem. I think it's too late now. They've released too many of these. We could make a separate video about that. I think we're too far gone to go back now, but they have to stop making it worse. They have to stop making it worse. And if they keep releasing heroes like this, it's gonna be a problem. They need to release a couple of heroes, I think, with more reasonable kits. Like, I think the latest example of a good one is this, where she's viable. Like, anyone tells her she's not viable hasn't run into a good one. But she's not broken. I don't think anyone is saying that Milim is broken around. That's what we need more of. Viable heroes that are useful in certain drafts that are broken and not safe first picks. And this is not it. This is too good. This is too good. That's what the Squirrel thinks. Leave your own opinions in the comment section below. If you're a top player and you've been seeing this in Legend RTA, please feel free to comment if you disagree. If you know counters to this, let me know. I could use some help myself. Because as far as I could tell, it's just too good. It's just too good. So anyways, thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below. Until next time, peace out, boys.